So, you interested in how Upwork actually decides who gets a job? Well, you're going to love part 2 of our series about how Upwork uses AI to match freelancers. In the very first series, we talked about the flow system that Upwork is creating using AI for matching. Go ahead and take a look at that article or video. All of this is available at community.pouncer.ai. For part 2, I want to go into this article we wrote about how Upwork actually decides who gets hired and not. So we're going to go ahead and quickly go through this article. Again, you can read it at community.pouncer.ai. It's our free resources for Upwork freelancers. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at how the system actually decides who gets recommended for a job. All right, so Upwork traces what they call core users. And what is a core user? Well, obviously people who sign up and create up an account, who start getting or giving jobs on the system, and who are consistently doing work. This is really important. According to their own documentation, only about 20% of freelancers make it to that growth phase, i.e. consistently doing work on there, who are getting repeat clients, who are getting a lot more money on the system. So that means 80% of them are basically failing. So 20% are doing in the growth phase and making 80% of the money actually that Upwork generates. So those 20% of freelancers are actually really, really important to Upwork. So again, let's make sure that if you're going to participate in the Upwork marketplace as a freelancer, you are trying to get to that growth phase, consistently doing work, getting repeat clients, and having higher paying jobs. Okay, so the way that they actually go through the best match system, the first thing that they do is they do what they call the first pass. It's the recall model. This is typical information retrieval technology. This is quickly finds profiles that match the search criteria for that job using some sort of similarity between the skills, titles, and keywords, etc. So that's the first pass, and they've had that obviously almost since inception. But the second pass is the one that's the most interesting, because this is really where AI is playing a bigger role, is in this re-ranking. So think of it this way. They get a whole bunch of freelancers whose skills and jobs match kind of what the client is posting. That's the first pass. The second pass is when they go through and re-rank that using AI, looking at things like click behavior, engagement signals, the strength of your profile. All of these things are part of that re-ranking, so that before the client sees it or before you're matched with it, it's going through a second analysis. So this means that your profile actually matters quite a bit. Yes, keywords do matter. We want to get in that first pass, but also the type of jobs you have worked on, the type of success that you've had with them. All of these things actually matter quite a bit when it comes to matching you to a job on the platform. So again, you want to be as niche as possible in your profile, and you want to make sure the jobs are related to that niche, that the words that you use are related to that niche. In other words, one of the things that we now know because of the publications of the data science team is your profile is not just about keywords, it's about the totality of the profile information. That's why it's so important. Okay. The next thing is how they look at skills. Now, we all know that skills are important. You need to have as many skills as you can in order of importance in all of your profiles. But they do something different. There are asserted skills, i.e. the ones that you put on there, and then they are the inferred skills. These are skills that should relate to what you do. And then there's the validated skills. Now, this one's interesting because the validated skills is actually based on your work history. So what they look at is when you have completed a job, that job has skills associated with it. So if you complete that job and you have a skill listed in your profile, and the job that you've completed successfully has that same skill listed in there, that's a huge signal. It's really frustrating because a lot of times clients don't always put in the right skills for a particular job. And you just look at it and go, really, yeah, I'll do it and I can do it, but it's not a perfect skill alignment. This is something that is, I think, frustrating, but also really important when you're looking at these jobs to hope that they have the skills that are listed in your skill set so that you're sending that very positive signal back to Upwork. Okay. So the other thing about the way they decide, and we talked about this in part one about these micro markets they create up, and to make sure that they are addressing the imbalance between supply and demand, the number of freelancers, the number of jobs. They want to make sure that everything is as tightly aligned as possible. So they are, again, really looking in these micro marketplaces to make sure that you've got enough of information in your profile, in your work history that aligns with what they infer that this particular job is going to need. So again, the more aligned your experiences are as you use the platform, the better your chances are going to be of getting in that best match system. They also, of course, are looking at the types of jobs that you're applying to. Again, another signal. Are the jobs you're applying to have the skill sets that are listed in your profile? That's really important. That's why you should not spam out proposals, because you want to make sure you're only applying to jobs that have those skills that are inside of your profile and inside of your work history. And the pricing. We talked a lot about pricing in the first part of this, about how they actually look at price, both the stated price and the actual work price. So if you haven't read that article or seen that video, go take a look at it, but that's also important. They really want everything to be a match between the job, information, what the client is willing to pay for it, what they infer the client is willing to pay for it, and what you have actually done on there. The job success dashboard is absolutely a factor in deciding who gets recommended for a particular job. But it's not just in isolation, meaning it's not just because you have a 100% JSS score. It's how you compare to everyone else that is in your particular micro market. And that's really interesting too, because that job success score is something that we all take a lot of pride in, but it applies in how it affects you is in comparison to everyone else in the micro market that is applying for this particular job. So if everyone has 100%, then it doesn't really matter, right? So again, you always want to have a high JSS score, but realize that maybe if you have a slightly lower one, how does it compare to everyone else who's applying? Which again, if you are spamming out proposals, you're doing a total disservice to yourself, because you are also probably don't have a very high JSS score with it. So we go through these tips for you to basically understand how this matching algorithm gets into practice. So as a takeaway, just keep this in mind. Number one, complete every aspect of your profile. We created the profile optimizer to help make sure that everything from your other experiences, past employment, portfolio, certifications, overview, everything is perfectly aligned. Make sure that it is aligned with what you actually do. Be applying to best match jobs. Cannot state that enough. That should be your first jobs that you apply to. Again, if you don't like the job, thumbs down, give a reason. If you like it, heart it and apply. It's a big signal. It's okay to apply to small jobs in the beginning, but you really want to make sure that you are being successful with those jobs, because again, that JSS score in those micro markets are a factor. And if you're doing work, let's say in WordPress Elementor, you're the Elementor person, you want those first early jobs to be right aligned with what your skill set is. And of course, keeping the JSS score high, no one's surprised by that. The other thing though is markets do change. And so as markets change, don't hesitate to update your profile and then take on jobs that are closely related to what you have been doing already. I saw this recently with one freelancer who did a lot of Chrome extension work, but saw a big spike in demand for automation, N8N, Make.com, etc. So he obviously had used some of this as part of the Chrome extensions he was developing, but he had to move very carefully into this, showing how the automation that he did via Chrome extensions applied to automations using N8N, Make, Zapier, etc. So just be very conscious of that. It's okay to update, but you really want to stay in that niche. And finally, really big, focus on repeat clients. I mean, obviously, anyone who's been on Upwork knows the value of going back to previous clients. Just try to get more of that engagement from those previous clients, because one of the ranking signals for matching is, does this freelancer get a lot of repeat business? Because that's a giant signal in their system that is all being fed into the AI. So if you want to learn more about this, go ahead and join us here at community.pouncer.ai. Every week we write lots of articles about what's happening with Upwork, strategies, tips, tactics, and you name it. We also have a lot of free courses out here. You can see it right here. Everything from writing cover letters to profile optimization, you name it. So go ahead, come and join us here at our site, community.pouncer.ai. And I hope you've enjoyed this two-part series. Feel free to share, like, and do all those things to help spread the word. Thanks again.